Ma'am, you said that we'll continue with the topics. I'm not sure if you're done with it, but we went through the definitions of what's the difference and how we need it.
All right. Okay. So this is section D. We are anyways short of one session. So all right. We'll go to controlling. Controlling, we said, is the last function of management, right? And what we are trying to do in controlling is we are trying to check what were the targets that we have set for ourselves and how short we are, and what are some of the things that we can do to come up with the desired plans. Oh, I've lost your PPT. I'm sorry. So that's what we will be talking about. So one of the things that we would say in terms of planning is I'm absolutely lost. How come it could be? Just a minute. Sorry for inconvenience, but stay on there. All right. Okay, fine. So we said that planning, when we were talking about its futuristic in orientation, we said that okay, you'll be planning that at so and so date and so time, we'll be doing so and so, right? Just as we set targets for our own self, just as we set our own courses. That this is where I see in terms of my career, this is where I see in terms of my job, and controlling look. Sorry, wrong PPT. Exactly the same way, when you talk about controlling, you go backwards where you begin and you compare vis-a-vis those targets, that where are you currently and see how much is the gap and how do you plug in that gap. Again, you'll come up with the plans. So this is an iterative vicious cycle which is never ending. That's why this is being called as a process, right? So that's what another thing about controlling would be. Where do you get a metrics? Where do you get performance measures? It always flow from planning. So planning and controlling, they goes hand in hand, right? There is no meaning of one without the other. Like when you don't have controls and checks and balances and you keep on doing something that you have thought of, you'll never be able to understand how well or how bad you are doing it, right? Makes a simple logic. When you are measuring something, when you are checking something, when you are evaluating something, it's only at that point that you get to know how good or bad you are at, right? So that is where we say planning and controlling goes hand in hand and they are a continuous process. Again, one of the important things that we talk about planning, in the meanwhile the PPT is opening, in controlling, is just like planning is all pervasive. Everybody plans, let it be the top management, the middle management, or the lower management, isn't it? Exactly the same way, controlling is also all pervasive. This happens at the all levels. Only difference that it would make perhaps will be at a level at which controlling is exercised, the kind of controls and checks and balances that are being exercised. Otherwise, this is also all pervasive. And now I should be able to share. So that is where we'll end today and move on to the next topic. Just let me know if this was the same slide. I presume this is the same one. We are talking about controlling. Slides are visible to you? Yes,
Oh,
no?
yes, ma'am, they are visible.
All right, thank you. So this is where planning, if you talk about planning, it is looking ahead because it's futuristic. Wherein when you talk about controlling, this is looking backwards. You go back and see where you set your targets. Did I ever ask you a question that do you have any pain points? Do you have any regrets? Do you have something that you would like to go back, tweak and change and upgrade to? Did I?
Yes, ma'am, in the last class itself.
Yes, so at least that gives an idea that just as we have targets for our own self, exactly the same way organizations also have targets for themselves and they do a reality check. They only get to know how ahead of they are their targets or how short they are. That comes only from the controlling. So control means checking and correcting activities in order to ensure that whatever is being planned is being attained, right? So how do you know if whatever that is being planned, you are done with it, you are in conformance with it or not? That comes only from the performance checks. For example, for any scorecard, any exam that you have been writing midterm, supposedly in my paper somebody say in 20 somebody scores 10. This gives you an indication how much is your preparation. I'm not saying those 10 marks would define your destiny, your career, and everything that we parents and teachers absolutely have gone ruthless about. No, but beyond that, that at least gives me an indication that how well you are following a particular subject, or at least that portion of syllabus, isn't it? So that is where it gives controls and checks that how are you following and not. And in case I'm concerned that you might flunk the paper, I might suggest you remedial classes. I might suggest you ask you more often, keep a track of your progress so that at least you pass on with the good grades. So that is where checking and correcting activities comes into. Controlling gives meaning to the planning function. That's what we said, because from plans only you would say that, okay, I'm going to be a market leader, or I would have my sales increase by 20%. This is your plan. So this gives an indication that whatever is your target x plus 20 is what you have set for yourself. Against that x plus 20, you will measure your performance and see if you are overshot your target, or you have attained your target, or you are short of it. So controlling gives function meaning to the planning function, because checks, controls, balances, performance metrics, benchmarks, they all come from the plans. If you look into the couple of definitions, Henry Fayol happens to be the father of management, and that's where he said control is verifying if everything is happening in conformance. So whatever as being planned, if in reality things are also happening exactly the same way as it was being planned. So checking the conformity, checking the conformance, checking things are happening as planned is what Henry Fayol's idea of controlling is. This points out mistakes and corrections in the suggest corrections in the system, so that you can rectify and you don't stumble upon the same. You can prevent the reoccurrence. This should not happen again. Like the same mistake happening twice is a mistake wasted. At least you stumble upon something else so that you have a new learning out of it. And that's the way we all grow. So that is where, if you talk about Henry Fayol, this is one thing that you can pick up as a keyword is conformance and the checking on the weakness and corrective actions. Coons and Arnold, again one of the very popular management propounders, more of contemporary writers in the field of management, says this is measurement and correction of performance. What you are doing in your exams, we are measuring. You got 5, somebody got 10, somebody got 15. What is this? This is a measurement, right? So controlling as a function gives measurements and corrective actions, right? Either you are ahead of your targets, or you are short of your targets, or there is a derailment, or something needs to be reworked because something is not working. Either sales are not picking up, or people are not happy, or too much of customer complaints. So something is going wrong somewhere, right? So what is that thing that needs to be corrected? You'll find out that is what Coons and Arnold said, that the controlling as a function is. Why you do that? Because as I said, that you might have had the plans, but how well all these plans are being attained comes only when you check. You might have best of curriculums, you might have best of the faculties, you might have best of the course structures, but imagine no exams happening. One of the things that fundamentally distinguishes any IIT or IIM from any other institution is the rigor, academic rigor. So no matter the professors turn up for classes or not, like BITS Pilani doesn't have a concept of attendance, or GNU New Delhi, Jawaharlal Nehru University New Delhi doesn't have a concept of attendance. You can step in once being a student, you can step into any of the classes and can attend the subject, no questions asked. Right, no matter you are it's more into sociology and those subjects, so you can attend political science inspired being a history student. So that's where no questions asked. The idea is, but then look at their exam level. It would automatically filter out the people who are not supposed to be there. Right? So that's where controls and measures and checks and balances should always be there. That gives a meaning to see if your planning is well attained or not, so that organizational goals can be attained. Organizations, when we were talking about planning, right? Remember we talked about a time horizon. Either it's a long range plan up to 5 to 10 years, or it is medium term 2 to 5 years, or it's short term within a year. Isn't it? So that timeline has to be checked within a stipulated time. Like for example, your degree. BTech is a 4 years, you need to complete it in 4 years. UGC say N plus 2, where N is the minimum number of years that the degree is for. So you can complete your BTech in 6 years. That's the max. If you get into 7th year for any reasons, well, that's invalid. You have to start it all the more from the scratch. So measurement is the important thing to keep check if organization goals are attained. Thus, what is controlling? It boils down to ensure that the performance is as being planned. There are gaps in balance. There are gaps, if any. There are corrections, if any. They are being noted and tweaked in the system so that your goals can be attained. Summarily, we can put this into nature of characteristics of planning. It's backward looking. Why? Because you're comparing, you set your targets at somewhere in the past, and then you saw that over the next 6 months, you'll see your progress. That's where you go back to those targets and look into. That's exactly the same thing that happens in the board meetings, that happens in review meetings, that happens in performance appraisal, that happens in sales review, that happens in budget review. Right? You are being asked questions, what were your targets and what is your current performance. Right? So that's where, since you go back to your target setting, because for comparisons where you are vis-a-vis what it was thought of, it is backward looking. Right, so that is where you can even take it as corrective actions that will subsequently see through. It gives meaning to planning. Of course, if you don't have controls and checks and balances, it wouldn't lead you anywhere because you will be directionless. Right, you are just moving, but you are not knowing where are you moving, whether it's a right path, not a right path, or whether you'll be able to attain your targets or not. And that's where it gives meaning to planning, because your controls, performance measures, benchmarks, yardsticks against which you will measure comes only from planning. Then it involves appraisal and evaluation. Yes, very much. Because what do we do when you are writing exams and you get a score sheet? That's being evaluation. Exactly the same way, your performance is being checked. Right? You are being told a syllabus. Out of that syllabus, your performance is checked. Exactly, that is what in organizational terms we call that appraisal and evaluation. So you do it for all the management functions. It's only production and sales mentioned here because that seems more easy to quantify, because if say how many units sold or how many units produced, that quantification is easy. But you can talk in all the terms of marketing, finance, HR, all the metrics can be used. It's all pervasive is something that we discussed through as we were putting it to slideshow, that irrespective of the function of the level of the management, this is all pervasive. Everybody from top to bottom across the verticals of the organization involved into planning. It might differ into how elaborate this is or what kind of functions are being controlled and checked. That's the only difference that it makes. It is forward looking too. That's where why is it forward looking? Because you go back, check it with your standards, and see where are the gaps, and that take that as a learning to move forward so that you don't stumble upon the same mistake, so that future recurrences can be avoided. Since you are using that learning to improve your future, we say that the controlling is forward looking too. It is a continuous process, of course. Like every time, like I have been asking, there are certain things that you don't like about the sessions, so there is always a room for improvement, right? So that is in that context. Every time you can think back, check with your measures and standards, and see what are the gaps, and you can close those gaps. So in that context, we are saying it's a continuous process. Action oriented, because the moment you know your plans are not working, the moment you know your sales are not picking, the moment you know you're short of your target, you know something somewhere is amiss, right? What that miss is, why is it not working? Identifying that gives you a call for action. You can pick up concrete steps. You can plan out actionable plan to follow so that organizational goals can be attained. Since this is based on the outcome of controlling, checks, evaluations, appraisals, this is called as action oriented. And the last one is positive and a constructive process. That's exactly where the very spirit of performance evaluation is positive in nature. We are targeting at making improvements. I don't remember if I ever asked you that you should be listening to your parents and teachers more often. Did I? Did I ever ask you you should be listening to your parents and teachers more often?
No, ma'am.
All right. So, people, you may take an opportunity to answer. 50 is a good number. Wow. Why? Why do you think you should be listening to your parents and your teachers more often? Mm-hmm.
Because they have more experience and they can guide us, I guess. They have better experience in life and they can guide us with what's right and what's wrong, and what they have done in their life, and what was the result of that. So we can learn from their experiences.
Okay. So Gaurav says, very well taken, all right. No right and wrong answers. It's just a matter of perspective and opinion, right? All right, Gaurav. Well taken. Anybody else?
Ma'am, like our parents and our teachers have also been youngsters like us, so they know how we think, what we want to do. We can't study all the time, so it's better to take advice from them because they have gone through the phase we are in currently.
Right, Ankur. Very well taken. And the last opinion, anybody wants to be heard before that we move on to something else?
Out of respect.
Out of respect. All right, bro. All right. Anybody has a differing opinion, or most of us would boil down to what Garv, Ankur, and Dhruv would have said? Anybody who has a different opinion would be an interesting discussion. Or anybody believes that we should not be listening to. Like, we shouldn't be. It's okay. That's a matter of personal choice.
We should listen to, but following it is a choice. I mean, you should do your own research before following that advice or not, because that was a different phase that they were living in, and now it's a different phase. So you should definitely do your own research before you follow that advice. So they may not always be right; they may be wrong sometimes.
All right, sir. Thank you. Good to listen to, and quite a daring answer that you could come on air and tell people that, okay, in spite of being parents or teachers, you can very well be wrong. Good. I like that spirit. Yes, absolutely. See, as what Ankur said, like out of respect, it's all right. We do oblige people, that's all right, one part of the story. But I've always been a very strong advocate that respect is for a particular behavior, for a particular conduct, irrespective of an age or irrespective of a position. Because you might be at a whatever position that you call yourself the top notch, but your behavior could be absolutely ridiculous. So, in that context, at least I don't go by that respect should be coming from the behavior, irrespective of the age, irrespective of the position or the title somebody holds. So that is one thing, and that's what Gav said. Even that okay, not religiously. Yes, I at least have been very candidly talking about that. I come from a bygone era. I'm an MBA 2007, so that's 13 years, right? That when I did my MBA, so a lot would have changed now. So putting yourself into the similar context would be more contemporary in nature and hence would give you an understanding. But yes, fundamentally the point remains the same that your parents and teachers would have been youngsters, as what Ankur said, right? So that's where exactly they would have stumbled upon a similar kind of mistakes. At least for the things that we can learn from an experience, please learn. You don't have to come on the same mistake, commit upon, learn it, and move forward. At least some of the things could be, gone there. So that's where next time when your parents trash you or your teachers go absolutely ruthless, especially, I'll be disappointed in case you don't score well. And just out of being a well wisher of yours, I might ask you certain questions like, why didn't you do it at the first place? What was the problem, or what can I do to make it happen for you to score good? Even if it is not one of the things that you aspire for. The idea is again, even if they are too critical, overtly critical, but they are your well wishers. Exactly the same thing happens when it happens to performance appraisal. Not a very good experience that most of the people would have. The reason being, the spirit is to point out mistakes, to point out errors, to point out corrections, so that this can be realized before it's too late for the action call. That's where in controlling we say, and the next time, please mind these words when you are listening to your parents, your teachers, and at times you feel like, no, the rebellion in you. So please hold back and look through where is it coming from, what is an idea and intention, and as long as this is being done in a good spirit, I think you should be all up for it, and you'll be able to make out if somebody is doing just to pull you down or somebody is doing it genuinely being interested. So that's certainly being made out. People can't cook stories over there. So that's where I said that listen to your parents and teachers more often. Not that they are correct. No, not at all. It's not that it's only the bosses who are correct. You can very well be on the other side and still be correct. Absolutely, because mine is only a perspective, not the perspective. Right? So that's one of the ways to look at. So in that context, we are saying the last aspect of controlling sales, it's a positive and constructive process. So even if it is intimidating, even if it is embarrassing, even if it is pulling out the corrections, people might have different ways to do it. But then idea in spirit is to have corrective plans and action plans in place so that you can reach your desired positions. Right? So that is where the very spirit is positive and the constructive process. It may take various shapes. We are just not getting into that debate. How many times people are fair, or the teachers are fair, or the students are fair? Well, this is all people, and we would have case-to-case variation. So with this, we end with the planning and controlling organizing. Let's pick up another topic. I'm putting this to stop sharing content. Any ideas what is the next thing coming up? Or in case there is something on your mind that you would like to discuss through as I move on to the next session. Controlling is one of the things even in the company like MDH. MDH stands for MDH, the Kitchen King. Yeah, Ankur.
I'm not sure, not sure.
Mahashaya Hatti.
Yes, who's that person? मतलब जिसने आंसर किया महाशयती हट्टी is very right, 100% correct answer. कौन था? Can you please name yourself? This is very strange. Somebody who has answered correctly is skeptical answering, naming himself. Or shall I put Garv as a seer of the class to locate and identify who that person was?
Even I don't know, ma'am. It just popped up and it just went away.
All right. Well, yes, whosoever it was, please have a pat on your back. This is 100% correct answer, Mahashidi Hatti. And the person was, he's no more. Like couple of, like last month only he died through. Otherwise, he was the oldest CEO and the highest paid CEO, and the person himself featured into every commercial. Right, there have been a lot of talk ever since he's gone. There is a lot of talk going into advertising domain, what their advertising strategy would be now, because one of the things in controlling that MDH did that made it a kitchen king for Indian kitchens is the controlling aspect, controlling for the quality and the prices. It's the best quality at an affordable price that they maintained throughout. They control for prices, they control for control for prices and control for quality. It was no celebrity endorsement. In an era when the brands are living out of celebrity endorsement, who to pitch in and who not, MDH did an awesome job being the market leader and still without any celebrity endorsement. Because a very plain common sense, nothing of an IIM kind of consulting, but a plain common sense that whatever the commitments are to the customer, don't lag onto it. Control whatever way that you can, but ensure that it is being delivered as committed. And a simple common sense is what they played on, and no celebrity endorsement, and that makes a case in point for MDH being a market leader without, in a cutthroat competitive era of advertising, without any celebrity endorsements, doing amazingly well. So that's where keep checks and balances is another thing. In various aspects, controlling would come into place in organization, that you can see people have been able to toss the idea and make it successful. All right, we are next going to talk about a quick session, and that would absolutely be a recap of what we have already discussed through. Since it was something very fragmented here and there, you would see a coherent flow of information in this session, and henceforth, in case I miss on, there are only last 2-3 slides that I would devote a discussion on. Rest all is a revision of something that we have talked through. So I'll go cursorily very fast, but in case some concept needs a revisit, something you have thought of previously also you would ask and you forgot, and we are stumbling upon the same again, please feel free to pause. In general, also, I speak a little fast, and if you have a problem catching up with the pace, do let me know to get slow down. Right? So, this is your next session that talks about managers, skills, and management. Absolutely, it's 100% done. So, that's where who are the managers? Somebody who coordinates and oversees the work of other people so that organizational goals can be attained. This is the same definition that we talked in the preceding sessions. At least in the opening session, we talked who are the managers, somebody who supervises the work of others. Right? That is what we call as managers, and rest all in the organization are non-managerial employees. So that goes back to this session. Again, this is something that we have been discussing through even in the planning. We discussed top level, middle level, and the lower level. We were talking in reference to planning, but how do you classify managers? One of the ways to look at it is at what level of management are they operating. If there's somebody at the top thinking for the entire organization, remember the corporate strategy, remember the strategic planning. We did talk, it is done by the top management. So if you are somebody who's deciding for the entire organization, you are at the top manager. Somebody at the middle, of course, there is top and a bottom, and somebody at the middle rack is what we call as middle managers. First line managers are interestingly the managers who oversee or look the work of non-managerial employees. If you would like to have a visual representation of managerial level, this is how it is like. At the bottom, you have non-managerial employees. Somebody who supervises the work is first line manager. Somebody above that is a middle line manager, and somebody who's at the top. If this is an organization structure, you see the top is overarching for all, right? You can look at all the levels, entire organization in totality. That is what is called as the top managers, whereby you have CEOs of the company, vice presidents of the company, strategic business units, heads of the companies. What is management? Management is a process. Manager is a person. Exactly, the rest is all the same definition as we talked about managers. Coordinating and overseeing the work activities of others so that the task can be attained, completed efficiently or effectively, or the organizational goals be attained. Look at here, managers coordinates and oversees the workflow of other people. Exactly the same. So you only tweak with one or two words. Please mind that very approach of the subject is, for example, you are being asked a definition to talk about, or you are being talked about, asked to talk about any concept. As long as we are referring to a particular concept from a particular person, please don't play with the sequence, order, and the keywords what they have named. Right? That means characteristically goes back to somebody who has propounded those concepts, and henceforth no tweaking acceptable. Rest all, when it comes to explanation part, you can do it on your own words, but please don't tweak with the concepts. Right? They are somebody else's research work, and by very practice of good research practice doesn't say that we should be tweaking those names and ideas and the concepts. So this is where management has two important concerns, something that we have deliberated at length: efficiency and effectiveness. Right? So efficiency is more of the productivity gains, effectiveness is the relevance, usefulness, if you are able to attain what you thought of attaining. Another way to look at it is like one of the examples in terms of efficiency is the means, like for example, resource utilization, right, or the low wastage that you get as an outcome. Whereas effectiveness is a goal attainment as the end result. Were you able to do it? How useful did you find it? How relevant did you find it? So when you are in a management position, when you are acting as a manager, your idea is to have a high efficiency, which is low wastage or high resource utilization, and the high goal attainment, which is again high effectiveness. You can see that both are important. We have already revisited one at the cost of another, or being mutually exclusive is not the case in management. And that's where in production operation scheduling we'll talk and debate if the lowest cost price, that's where auctions are done, no? The lowest price quotation gets a chance. And that's where we'll discuss and debate if that's a good strategy always. Right? So it's not mutually exclusive, one at the cost of other, but both to be attained. This is also a recap of what we have already discussed through what do managers do. There are three approaches to look at what do managers do. One, defining that in terms of the functions that they perform. Second, in terms of the roles that they play. And thirdly, the skills that they need. We have discussed probably all three of them. Functions, you know the manager's function: planning, organizing, leading, and controlling, right? Please revisit this slide. Please read it for yourself. And when you are done reading, please come back to me.
Yes, ma'am. Done.
All right. So you look into planning, the same things that pop up again as a keyword is goal, strategy, and coordination. Organizing is what needs to be done, who needs to be done. So establishing the structure, establishing and reporting the relationship. Leading is once again motivation, communicating and leading through the people. Controlling is again monitoring, checking the performance so that the goals are attained, accomplished plans are accomplished. When you do all this, you'll be able to attain the organizational stated purpose, whatever it be, that we have talked through ever since the first session. The kind of roles that managers play. What are roles? Roles are the specific behaviors, right? That comes from a particular position. That's a particular behavioral expectation. Like in this class setting, me being on the other side of the desk as an instructor has a role to play. There is a way that I need to behave too, and same applies to you as a student, right? So that comes from a particular behavioral expectations of a managerial position. Me as instructor, your HOD would have a position of HOD, somebody as dean, somebody as vice chancellor. So these are all the roles that the people play. According to Mintzberg, they are grouped into 10 rules. This is something that we have talked through. Interpersonal, informational, and decisional rules of Mintzberg. Please remember the word Mintzberg. You might be asked in exam who proposed these rules. So this is Mintzberg's managerial role as figurehead, leader, license, monitor, disseminator, spokesperson, entrepreneur, disturbance handler, resource allocator, and negotiator. Negotiating various ways and means for everyday working. Who would do, like say department have 5 people, who would do what, or in terms of allocating resources, what kind of projects one would handle, what kind of activity somebody else would do. So in that context, Mintzberg's managerial roles. Skills that the managers need. This is as per CADS. Skills. This is 3 things that we have already discussed through: technical skills, human skills, and conceptual. Technical is your job know-how, right? For example, you would know, like computer science engineer, what would you know? Any of the languages, right? The coding ones, you know it the best because that comes by very virtue of you being computer science engineer. Well, for me, that would be going back to like understanding what is the theories of leadership, what are the theories of motivation, so and so forth. That's technical. Conceptual is when you apply, when something as an abstract, you are able to see the larger picture and apply those in technical know-how to arrive at solutions and see the cause and effect. Why is it not working? Right. So remember when we talked about Bentham Steel and the Charles, whereby in his steel mill productivity was an issue. His manager was actually applying the technical knowledge, putting through the motivation theories, incentivizing people, whereby he has studied that incentives or the money matters for people and motivates, or even the thrashing, threatening, and the scolding matters. You give people a warning that you'll lose your job or get me this done. I'm sure at least there will be a couple who will spin their heads and will get it done, isn't it? So, but then what he did was Bentham Charles was more of a conceptual skill that okay, let me try seeing how people respond to this competitive spirit of 6 being erased and written as 7 and improving on the productivity game. So that is where you are able to see the larger picture, right? So that is conceptual skills. Human skills is invariably, irrespective of the position. There are certain awesome people that you come across, right? Nothing to do with the positions and the titles that they hold. So that is where you see the continuum and the gradient. It's continuously important for the human skills, no matter it's a lower level managers, middle level managers, or the top level managers. Throughout, it's important. This is where the another 3-4 slides is where I'll devote another 5 minutes to discuss because this is something new to you. How's the manager's role, job role changing? That's exactly where we have talked through VUCA world. Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. That's how we define the business world. It's not same as remember the discussion that we were having, and Gaurav said that your parents and teachers come from a bygone era, and things are pretty much different now. Exactly, very well taken and true. That's exactly when you talk about the business world, at least in education, I still refer to the same classics that I tend to refer to my own students to. The same textbook, they are the classics, the other kind of Bibles. But in the business world, the change happens at a very rapid pace. Right? So that's where the customer is the foremost important in whatever business that you are doing. That's the entire cornerstone. Otherwise, you'll have examples like BlackBerry. The companies, don't you think BlackBerry would have smartest of engineers like you or the smartest of managers from IIM? Of course, it did. But there were no takers, there were no customers. For whom would it build, sell a particular product if there are no takers for it? That is where there is an increasing importance of customer. Look at the social media. For example, I went to Udaipur and I went to Yellow Chili. That comes from a celebrity chef, right? His chain of hotels. Didn't had a good experience. All that it took me is Twitter, put it hashtag, market, tag it to Yellow Chili, and put it on social media. That came a reply from all the everybody, for the Yellow Chili to look into the matter, what is the problem and what they can do to rectify. But that's the power that the customers have, right? So that is phenomenally important. Or I own a brand of car, Volkswagen, and MEO is the one. Well, when I compare to this to the Indian version, I bought an affordable German quality because that's quality, safety of my family was the priority, and that's the most affordable German car. Somebody has something to share? All right. But when you look at the Ciaz, it's much more spacious, wherein this is cramped kind of car. Like at the rear seat, if you look, it's too cramped. It's too less of leg space. That's where the one of the finest brand of Volkswagen has absolutely gone wrong. They might have bested the product design engineers, but they failed. So next time, at least, I wouldn't suggest anybody. If the space is one of the reasons people are buying Ford, MEO is not one of the brands to go for. So that's where, even for the finest quality cars that you have, which is slightly higher in the same segment compared to Indian versions of cars, that is where customer is fundamentally the important. Companies exist because there are buyers and takers for a particular product or service that you are offering, and if not, you cease to exist. So that's one thing that you need to swear by. Second is the innovation. Look into the kind of business models that we have, like Disney Byju's didn't existed, wherein my daughter for grade 2 has a Disney Byju's subscription. OLX, Ola, Uber, Swiggy, Zomato, Grofers. You just think of these were the business models that didn't exist a decade back, isn't it? But they do now. Second is the innovation. So this is something which people, companies, products, managers, they are every now and then coming up with new project ideas, new processes, new methods, new systems, and everybody has to keep up the pace with it. For example, Elon Musk is somebody everybody else as youngster is following. How many of you follow Elon Musk? Can I have a show of hands? How many of you follow Elon Musk? Okay, Karthik, Garf. Okay, 57 people and 6 of them. All right, you can put your hands down. So see, such a sensation that he is, and by various permutations and combinations, people who invest into stock market will never be able to arrive at a logical valuation of a company, that the people have made money by investing into Tesla as a company, right? Very recently, it had 30% devaluation. A lot of anticipation and skepticism goes back to this devaluation of Tesla is owing to the fact that Joe Biden, the newly elected president of America, is a hardcore environmentalist, and he would have more of thrust put up on the cleaner technologies. But anyways, people who are die-hard fan of Elon Musk and Tesla are still believing that this is only temporarily and the company would be bouncing back. So that's where we are saying innovation. Something is happening in the environment. and you need to take a note of how it impacts your business. It can be a regulatory force, it can be something from your competitors. So keep checking that. So more we'll talk about innovation in case of when we talk about Unit 4 entrepreneurship, that how people, even the organizations, even the companies, something like Google, something like what else do you call Disney Pixar animations. Look at their animation movies, most amazing ones. How do they do it? Because they are high on innovation. They have systems, processes, and methods institutionalized to arrive at innovation. That is when you are in a company role and still very innovative. You are an entrepreneurial in nature. You are being called as intrapreneur. So that's one thing that you need to note. What is an organization? You already know. This is a deliberate arrangement of people. It's not that I'm a computer science engineer, Intel is my dream company and I go and join, or I can go and join at Cisco. No, I need to be put up through a rigorous process of selection and recruitment before being hired by Cisco or Intel. Exactly the same way, in organization, there is a concept of person-organization fit and person-job fit. Person-job fit, understand it like you are computer science engineers, you can develop an app better than what I can do. I'm a management graduate, I can look at what it takes for advertising to be successful or what it takes for people to put up their best show, right? That is where I can pitch into. So that is person job. So Sachin Tendulkar plays cricket and that's where he's unbeatable, isn't it? Well, in case of organization, there is one more thing which is person-organization fit. I'd quote one of the classical favorite examples of mine, which is from Southwest Airlines, which is an American domestic airline, no frills attached, that kind of airline, and it was phenomenally successful when everybody else was a failure in the airline industry. So people were curious to note how Southwest can manage that. One of the uh, one of the things that came out of research was in one of the instances, you can freely download that case, it's available on Google. That episode mentions about recruitment at Southwest Airlines. And look into the people's attitude, right? Please remember that. So the people who turned up for pilot interviews, they were asked to put up on shorts. Southwest Airlines had an informal working culture whereby people were asked to put up shorts. Well, somebody coming for a professional interview as pilot, few of the people were not comfortable putting on shorts and appearing for interviews and they denied. For the people who said no, we can't put on shorts and appear for interviews, they were outrightly rejected, not put through any interview process. Others were put through and finally somebody was selected. The very reason why so? Because by very virtue, anybody is a commercial pilot would fit in the job of being pilot at Southwest. It's no big different. Well, all that it matters is an attitude of the people, right? Because Southwest Airlines was able to fly more number of hours, was able to ferry more number of people because it was flying more in the air rather than standing still at the airport, because it had a characteristically 15 minutes of turnaround. So by the time a plane will land in the airport and would take off for the next flight again, it's only back to back, neck to neck, you can measure it's 15 minutes. So everybody from the pilot to the cabin crew to the cargo, everybody would pitch in to make plane turn around in 15 minutes so that they can fly more number of hours. So they were able to do more business with lesser fleet of aeroplanes and they had efficiency and effectiveness gains. That is where if these people were hired as pilots, tomorrow they would have been the one who would say that, see man, I'm somebody supposed to be flying the plane. I'm a pilot. I'm not supposed to carry on the trash. I'm not supposed to carry, load and unload the cargo. That's where they did not fit in the culture of the organization, and that's where when you are appearing for interview, I suggest people to at least have a look at the vision, mission and value orientation of the organization, the kind of culture that it has. And if you can weave that into your answers, your likelihood of being selected is much more compared to anybody else. So that is where an organization is, remember, a deliberate creation. A lot goes into thinking who would be part of it and who not. Common characteristics is what we have already discussed. And the last thing here, why should we be studying management? This is universally applicable, isn't it? Like irrespective whether it's an NGO, whether it's a big organization, small organization, entrepreneurial startup, it's applicable to all. Second, the reality of the work, as this is something I've already told you, there are only two conditions that we would fit in. Either you'll be managing somebody or somebody will be managing you, right? So again, you would need the management principles to navigate yourself successfully in either of these positions. Rewards and challenges, like you said, that, okay, your teachers and parents and yourself, there is a generational gap. Exactly the same way, things are much more challenging. People are much more ambitious now. It's gems again. We have gig economy talking about whereby people take it as freelancing, not a classical 9 to 5 clock in timing, right? And they are able to take early retirement somewhere at 30, 35 of years of age and do something that they're passionate about, henceforth rest of life. Read Rich Dad Poor Dad and you'll get an idea for the what I'm talking about. So that is where it's very rewarding and challenging at the same time being a manager. You never know what will work and what will not, because you are working with a brilliant bunch of people and every case is different there. So that's where studying management will help you navigate yourself more effectively. Have a look, small size, big size, profit, non-profit, top, bottom, or any marketing, any function of management. Management is all needed. So that makes it universally applicable. I'm done with it. If you have any quick observations, questions, thoughts. Yeah. And if not, I sign this off.
No, ma'am.